Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? Welcome to number 29 of the Know Your Gear Live series. All the way back. I'm back from Nashville. It was great. Living Dead Punker says, greetings from Denmark. Jerry says hi from France. Manuel says hi from Philadelphia. Yeah, Philly. So it's good to see you guys from everywhere. How was everybody's week or 2 weeks? It was
Ireland's there too. The Euro Squad.
Yep.
That's what he said. The Euro Squad.
The Euro Squad. So I hope everybody had a good 2 weeks. I of course didn't do a live show last week because I was in Tennessee. So I was in Nashville. Yeah. Yes, I was with my buddy Thor hanging out. Had a good time. Went to a ton of music stores. Got a couple cool things, cool pieces of gear while I was there, and of course enjoyed the NAMM show. So I thought, since it's been a little while, we should probably do a live stream and take some questions and see what's going on. So here's the first question from Michael. It says, hey Phil, what are your thoughts on the Greco Dan Armstrong plexiglass guitars? You know, I've owned some variations of the plexiglass guitars in the past. I don't know if you ever had a plexi guitar.
I couldn't because of your experiences.
Yeah, you know what? They're great. They're just heavy. They're really heavy. So they're really kind of a one-song, what we call a one-song guitar. You go on stage and it looks cool. The artists that use them over and over again, it's just how heavy they are. I think mine was like 13 or 14 pounds.
I remember you had that BC Rich bass. That was a BC Rich plexiglass bass.
Yep, I had a BC Rich plexiglass
that
bass.
That was 29 pounds?
It was, about that. It was like 20-something pounds. And it had, also it had a plexiglass headstock. Remember they morphed the plexiglass into wood back, and it was a really expensive bass. I've never seen one since.
And it was extremely heavy. Because we joked around with it a lot.
Yes. In fact, the only thing worth mentioning is I've played many double neck guitars.
Yes.
And even there's a double neck right now for sale on Kiesel guitars. And same thing, that was like 14, 15 pounds. So they're generally the same weight as having two guitars. So it gives you an example. How do you say that? Geometrical shape. Geometrical shape says, I'm at SeaWorld right now, sweating my butt off. SeaWorld in Texas or in California? So probably Texas if you're. Is it hot? Because I bet you San Diego is not that bad right now. Okay, next one is, what do you think of, if I can't say the name, I'm just going to, sorry guys, I'll do my best. But it says, hey Phil, what do you think about the Peavey Bandit 112, the new ones? You know, I've had very little experience playing the new ones. I've probably played one. I'm more experienced with the older ones. So I don't know particularly what I have no memory of the new one being anything different. I'm sure the big difference is the new ones are made in China. I don't know if the old ones are made in the USA more than maybe 20 years ago. They probably were. In the last 10 years, it's probably been an import thing. Overall, really good for a lot of reasons. The main reason I've always liked them is even though they're a solid state technology amp, they take pedals well, they're loud, and one of the things that's great versus modeling amps is because they have a dedicated clean channel and a clean sound, you can really get your pedals to perform. So if you're looking for a platform for pedals, I think they're a fantastic solid state version amp. Yeah. I would definitely, I couldn't tell you personally I thought they were better than, let's say, the Blues Junior or the Classic 30, but given the stability of solid state, given the expense of it, I would say it's a contender for something to look at and have.
They're not bad.
No, they're not bad. No. You could definitely gig with them for sure. I mean, they're of that quality to gig with, and nobody would complain. So that's the... Jose Cruz says, Les Paul or PRS? Well, I have both. You know, interesting. This is a nice point to point out. I bought recently, it's over here. I don't know if you can see it. It's out of frame. I have a 594 from PRS. I just recently bought another PRS when I was in Nashville. And I just recently bought a Les Paul. And what I can tell you, honest to goodness, especially being a 2017 Les Paul and a 2017 PRS, without a doubt, the fit and finish on the PRS is everything you would expect from a $3,000 guitar or $2,000, $3,000 guitar. There's nothing you could accuse them of skimping on when it comes to perfection. My Les Paul, although I love it, it had a little chip in the binding, a little dismark, right? The nut wasn't cut correctly. When I first did the setup in the video, I was like, oh, this is great. But after playing it, I realized that the D string was not cut slot deep enough, so it was a little high, and it made it hard to play when I was playing a barred F chord. I didn't notice that until when you do a review or you're demoing guitars. Sometimes you don't notice anything until you're playing some other type of music. And interestingly enough, when I do reviews, I play a lot more traditional-based rock, metal type music, but me personally, I play a lot more I don't know, punk rock, but mostly what I call songwriter type music.
Yeah.
You know, like Bob Schneider is a huge influence on me. If you're familiar with that artist, I can play a lot of his songs. I love playing his stuff. Anyways, so I discovered that issue. So the question is, which one would I pick? Well, I can't get over the fact that I'm just drawn to Les Pauls for the historic purposes of the fact that they're just this classic sound and they're great.
And they look cool.
They look cool. But if I could only have one, I would pick my PRS. And I probably wouldn't have said that a couple weeks ago. I probably would have said Les Paul, and maybe in the past I've said Les Paul. But as much as I think the Les Paul might even sound a little better to my ear, I just really prefer the quality of my PRS. So, and that's just how I feel. And then, and on a segue to this, sometimes people talk about, like, you know, guitars having soul. The Les Paul has a soul. Yeah. The PRS doesn't have a soul. I always remind everybody that it's a piece of wood. Of course, it doesn't have a soul. If it did have a soul, it was when it was a tree and we killed it.
Well, not we.
Yeah, not we. Not personally. Yeah. We're just the ones. But
anyways, we're the accomplice to it.
We're accessory after the fact.
Yeah, you know, that's cool.
But my point is that I think what musicians mean when they talk about something having a soul is the feeling that it gives you, the sound, and a lot of that is your memories, and a lot of that is what you've heard other artists do with it. And what I've always explained is that a guitar really gets its soul from having a history with you. Some of the guitars I bond the most with, my instrument that I bond the most with is my bass, because I play bass so much, and I've had the same bass for, I don't know, 11 years. And so, you know, when we talk about reviews and everybody asks me why I don't do more bass reviews, it's because I don't own very many basses, because I fell in love with that one about 11, 12 years ago, and I play 90% of the time that bass. It's everything it needs to be for me. So, and it has a history with me now. I've recorded with it. I've played gigs with it. I practice with it. It's an extension of me in some way. So even though it's just a Fender jazz bass, it has a soul in the idea that it has memories with me. So I know that's a little spiritually weird, maybe, but it's what I understand. Any thoughts on that, Ralph?
I'm going PRS. I don't own a Les Paul. I've tried to buy them over the years, but I've never found one that I've actually really liked. Now, working the shop and doing repairs, I've seen too many of the new ones come in through. Nothing I actually liked. Again, the fit and finish on the PRS is spot on every time. So, and that's my problem is I'm always on that hunt for that Les Paul or that SG, and I can never find one I truly like.
Yeah. You know, that's a good point. If you hold a Gibson to the quality standards of a Paul Reed Smith, which is sometimes what I do, you're always disappointed.
Yeah.
You gotta love a Les Paul for a totally different reason than the quality. Yeah. And people say all the time to me, they don't make them like they used to, and they, you know, right, or all that stuff. I don't know. I've worked on so many over the years. They're just, some are good and some are bad. It's a consistency point. I don't think they were ever a good time or bad time. I just think some are luck out. Some are good and some are...
And I want to own a Les Paul. That's my problem. You know, Slash, Jimmy Page, all these guys that have played Les Pauls. I want one. I just can't find one that I like enough to actually buy.
Yeah. Like I said, it was tough for me. I finally just bought, when I bought the Gold Top, it was just out of a desire to want to get a Les Paul, another one to the collection before anything happens with Rosewood fretboards to the Gibsons and stuff. I just wanted to make sure I had that in my inventory of stuff I want, because I didn't want to wait a couple years and find out I have to pay twice as much, because that means I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Mr. Bad to the Bone 74. That's a good name. Yeah. I like that. Ever tried a diamond amp? Well, I've only tried one, and it was the Assassin. I tried it at the Guitar Center in Nashville. I told you I was just in Nashville. I went to a lot of music stores there, and it was okay. At first, my first reaction was I didn't like it at all. And I was telling Thor, my buddy Thor was with me the entire time, and I was like, not digging it. It started growing on me, but I will say this. It was $350. There was two of them there at that Guitar Center in Nashville. They were both $350. So if you guys are interested, it's there online. You can get it for $350. I thought it was okay. The clean channel was pretty good. The dirty, it has a one channel, but the clean it up, it was pretty good. The dirty was okay. I was not amazingly impressed. It was hard to say something bad for $350, but I would imagine it's not like his higher end ones. Okay, the next question comes from Inconfish23. Inconfish23 says, cheers from Maryland. Things at NAMM, Tennessee, you really enjoyed? ? Any good stories? Yeah, most of my stories are going to be from not being at the NAMM because it was a small show, right? It was my first Summer NAMM. I've been to about 13 Winter NAMMs. This is my first Summer NAMM, although I enjoyed everything. The highlight of the NAMM show for me was talking to Trev Wilkinson of Wilkinson Bridges. He was definitely a ton of information. And one of the interesting things, and maybe you guys will understand this, my buddy Thor's like, are you going to videotape him when I was talking to him? Because we talked for like 2 hours about the history of everything. And I told him, I said, see, what I've learned is when I videotape people, they're different than when you talk to them.
Yes.
And I want to learn from these guys, And Thor, I think he told me afterwards, we were talking about it, he goes, the amount of information that Trev had and the stories he had about, Seth Lover and Leo Fender, was very impressive. And I told him, I said, see, and they won't be as candid if they're on film. And so what's interesting for me is I just want to learn from them. Because I find that what I think happens is we think all this information will be on the internet later. We'll be able to Wikipedia it. But what you find is that people in this industry, like any other industry, they put out what they want,
yep.
right? And everybody has a different version of everything. There's a lot of disputes about who did what and why and who, right? And it's a catty industry. So I try to learn from each person, and then at least if information's wrong, at least I know what source it is. It's nice when you talk to Grover Jackson, or you talk to Dave Freeman, or when you talk to Trev Wilkinson, and they tell you what they their stories. Even if some people says that they're wrong on their own stories, at least it came from their words. I recently did a video, the 5 things about Marshall, and it was from a video in a meeting I had with Jim Marshall. So somebody actually disputed one of the things I said, and I sent them like, hey, this is him saying it to me. Audio-wise, right? It was captured audio. So it's if it's wrong, it's because he said it wrong. so it was cool. So that was the highlight of the show for me, was talking to Trev. A lot of cool gear. That's why I did the 10 things. The one thing that didn't make the 10 things, and I really feel bad about it, it's one of those things when I was really exhausted from the show, was the new, it's the drum pedal from Digitech. Fantastic. Basically, when you strum your low strings percussively, and it makes the bass drum, and the high strings are the snare, and you make a beat with your strumming pattern, and then it listens and then makes a real beat behind you, and then you can USB connect it to your Jam Man and do loops and all this other stuff with it.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, it physically builds, well, I don't know if physically is the word, but it builds drum beats around your playing for $199. So that's really cool. I really feel bad. It was on my list, and it got kicked off, and I really regret that. And I always joke with all my friends, one day soon, or not so soon, there'll be 5 things I got wrong or 5 things I regret doing on the 5 things videos, right? Something funny like that. But that's what happens when you create videos. It's no different than creating an album. You make cuts sometimes to videos. I edit, or I leave something out.
Yeah.
And I look back and I go, I wish I would have left that in, or I wish I would have, right? It's just tough. But the truth is, if you edit your videos, if you spend too much time editing them,
you start overthinking it.
Yeah, I've deleted, or I've gotten rid of 2 or 3 dozen videos that now I regret that I got rid of them, and I got rid of them because I obsessed over watching them so many times. I just thought they were never going to come across correctly. So sometimes I've learned just put it out there and we'll live with it. Next question comes from Mike Pazanki. I'm sorry, Mike, if I'm saying your last name wrong. Mike says, hey, what do you think of the new Headrush pedal board? I haven't tried it. I've seen it at a couple Guitar Centers. I haven't tried it. I've seen a lot of reviews of it. Looks like it's making the rounds, so to speak. In other words, they're sending them to YouTubers. So I don't know. It's one of the pedal boards that, now if I'm not mistaken, it's made by the company that makes the 11 rack, right? So obviously that was a good quality unit. This is obviously to contend with the Axe FX and the Line 6 stuff that's out there, and at $1,000. So I haven't tried it. I am very curious. I almost tried it at one of the Guitar Centers, but probably like you guys, it seems a little too much to sit down in a music store and try to mess with. And I didn't feel comfortable buying it, and then because I thought I'd return it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm curious about it. If there's a modeling thing I'm curious about, that's probably the height of my list. So anyone have any thoughts with that? Let me know, because like you guys know, this is This is a discussion forum, so please let me know what you guys think, especially even after the video is posted. Let me see those comments. Okay. Here's a question from Ryan. I'm going to give it a shot. It says, is it a good idea to go straight from a Epiphone Standard Plus Top Pro to a PRS McCarty? Question mark. I'm not the type to sell guitars after I get them.
It's not a bad idea.
Well, I understand. That's a great question in the idea of, when is it time to upgrade? And interesting enough, think about what you got. He's got the Epiphone Standard Plus Top Pro. So that's like the height. That's at the high end of what Epiphone offers.
Yes.
It's a difficult question because you can't use the PRS McCarty is expensive and therefore it's going to be better. Having a McCarty 594 and have played many Epiphone Standard Plus Tops, especially the Pro Series, kind of Pro Series guitars, I personally like the McCarty better. Obviously, I would, if I didn't, I'd have the Epiphone, right? Even though I've previously said in videos that the only reason I don't play Epiphones is because I don't like the way the headstock looks compared to the Gibson. I have been looking at Epiphones lately about acquiring one. But I don't know if... So the answer to the good question is this. It says, is it a good idea to go straight from those things? Yes. Yeah. Like, should you ramp up to it? No. If you decide to go that way, you go that way. What you need to really understand, though, is there's a side of high-end guitars that I always remind everybody, and I'm just going to talk to you like a friend, Ryan. One of the downfalls of having a PRS, my PRS 594 is not ever going to go anywhere where it can get chipped and stuff because I'm going to freak out. Right, I chip and play all my guitars. That guitar is slightly out of my price range comfort zone. Yeah, I have a few guitars, maybe 3 or 4, that are they're right above where I'm comfortable, right? And sometimes I get rid of them because I don't like that feeling. So one of the downfalls is you could play your Epiphone Standard Plus Top and enjoy it every day, and that McCarty. It stresses you out. so something to think about.
I don't think it's a bad idea. A lot of times people think that you have to step up in guitars for some weird reason. Like an example, if you're racing motorcycles, you start off on a 250, you race that for a while, then you go up to 600, you race that for a while, then you go to 1,000, and then you're there. It's not that, it's a guitar. So if you like the McCarty, and you're willing to shell out that much cash for it, there's no problem in the world with that. And people think, oh, my playing level isn't good enough for this guitar.
Well, a better guitar will make you play better.
And it'll make
it won't
you play
make you
more.
a better player. But you will play better with a better guitar.
And you're going to play more, too.
Right.
So I always say it's not bad.
The argument that I've loved, the best ever, is Paul Reed Smith once said, guitars are subtractive. In other words, they cannot make you better, but they can take away from you, right? Yes. And so a better guitar doesn't make you better, but you will play better because it fights you less, right?
Yes.
So something to think about. It's not a guarantee, though, but in that case, the 594 is a better guitar. Roy Foffard says, hey, what is your opinion on Hamer guitars? Seems like if it had a different name on the headstock, they would be more popular. Hamer Guitars is a company that has fallen to the same... unfortunately, the same problems that has plagued a lot of companies like them, where they've changed ownership too many times. And so Hamer currently is now in a different ownership than it was before. For a short time, it was owned by Fender, and before that, it was Ovation, which was KMC. I'm not even sure who owns it now. It might be KMC again. Yeah. But anyways, the point is, I agree with you, right? There's a lot of guitar brands like that if you put a more popular brand headstock on their guitar. I'm a Hamer fan because I'm a huge Gary Hoey fan. So is Ralph. Yeah. We're huge Gary Hoey fans. And Gary Hoey, of course, played Hamers before he went to Fender. I just saw Vernon Reed with Living Color about 2 months ago, and he was playing a PRS now, but he was a Hamer guy. Hamer is a good brand. They were always the high-end stuff. They were really the high-end before Paul Reed Smith. That type of guitars. In fact, when people talk about Paul Reed Smith competing with Gibson, I've always felt like Paul Reed Smith was chasing Hamer. Hamer had that market that now PRS kind of owns. And so when people talk about Hamer, they refer to him all the time like Jackson or, like maybe not Ibanez, but Jackson, Charvels, ESP. I've already seen them as PRS before PRS was PRS, right? Their hollow bodies, semi-hollow bodies were fantastic. A lot of their double cut guitars. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. If Hamer brand had a different branding on it, they would do, right, people would give them more of a shot. The problem I have now with Hamer when people ask me is, what do you think of them? I don't know what they are right now. I don't know if they're making in the U.S. or if they're import. I'm not sure what the deal is. So, all right. So this is the hardest name ever. It's C2220030. Okay, it's probably your license plate number. It says, "Can you please recommend a good intelligent harmonizer?" Oh, that's a tricky one, right? The harmonizer, so what's the funny thing about harmonizers, right? I think it's, and I'm doing this off memory, guys, so please don't beat me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure the word harmonizer is owned by like TC or Eventide. They own that name, right? That's why some pedals are called a harmonist, right? So harmonizer, anyways, I just thought that's a fun piece of trivia. We'll get it right. I'm doing it off memory, but I'm pretty sure one of those companies it owns that name. Anyways, yes, for an intelligent harmonizer that I've found impressive, so the H9 by Eventide had some really good intelligent harmonizing stuff in there. The Boss one's pretty good. I liked it. There's a couple others. A lot of people don't like some of the Line 6 stuff, but I've had good luck with that as well. What's another good harmonizer out there? I really, to be honest, out of all the ones I've tried, I'm just going to go with the one I liked. I like the H9 for that stuff. Okay, Slacker 1602 says, "Hey Phil, what do you think of the Hotone X Stomp pedal? I'm thinking of maybe getting one as my first pedal. It's kind of a lot of money though." The Hotone X Stomp, look that up. Tell me what that is. And so give me a second, Slacker 1602. He's going to look it up and refresh my memory because they make so much stuff. Or Hot One, right? They're Hot One. What did they tell us at the NAMM show? Their name is Hot One, right? Hot One.
Yeah. We kept calling it a Hotone.
Hotone.
Because it sounds cooler.
Yes, and they're like, no, it's Hot One. So, hi. Okay, so the next one is the Covenant. No, the Convert. The Convert says, "Hi, from Chicago." Hey, Chicago. Nice and humid there, I'm sure. "How much better is a Squier or an Epiphone guitar than the off-brand Asian guitar, especially at the sub $200 level?" That's a great question because, to be honest with you, there's arguments both ways, right? But I can tell you from experience of working on them, what Squier and Epiphone bring to the table over the off-brand guys is only one thing: the ability to quality assurance check more of them.
Yes, and that's really big on those guitars, especially for those price points.
Yes. Yes, because what happens is you could argue that an off-brand can give you a slightly better guitar for the same price, which is true. However, they usually fail to have the ability to QC them as well as Fender, or Squier, I should say, and Epiphone. So that is what the advantage of Squier Epiphone brings you. Now, they also have problems with QC, but
it's a higher level of quality control versus an off-brand.
Yes. So I've had good luck with both. So there you go, if that tries anything. Okay, obviously I know what pedal you're talking about. So the X Stomp. Yes, this pedal at $250 is an interesting pedal. The only thing I know about it is I saw the Anderson guys review it. I've seen a couple reviews. I have not tried it. And it's one of those products that's a little strange for me because it comes from a company who doesn't have a history of that kind of product, right? So it's always weird when a company that
it's a modeling pedal.
Yep. The without an experience of it, I can't tell you, right? But I can say that I've played a lot of other pedals that are like that are less money that I've enjoyed, and I might look at those first. But I have a little bit of relationship with those guys from the NAMM show, talking to them. Maybe we should reach out. If that's something you guys are interested in, let me know if you're interested in that too. Slacker, let me know if you put in the notes if you'd like me to reach out and try to get a review of that. And I could give you an honest feel. Maybe do a review so much on how fast I could figure it out. Like an open box and see, right? Something like that. Because that's what I'm worried about, stuff like that.
Is the learning curve on getting it right.
Yeah.
Because I know we've had that problem before in the past where we've gotten the pedal, tried to use it, couldn't figure it out, got upset, then just came back to it a couple days later, then we figured it out. And going, well, for some reason it was too much of a learning curve just to get this pedal to sound good.
So the next one is, okay, it says, yeah, here's a question. It says, Tyler wants to know, do you have any tips for drilling bigger holes for tuners?
Be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a messy thing. First off, I tell everybody don't do it, right? You can find the tuner key that fits every particular hole. Does it make sense? So I recommend that first. But if you're in a situation where you have a bigger tuning key, I have a video. I'll reference it in this question. I have a video that shows you exactly how to do that without using a drill press. So I use a drill press when I do it. Okay, it's tough because I can tell you right now, you are always going to take a risk of chipping the headstock, right? However, I have a trick, and I did a video where I installed tuning keys. I forget the name of it right now. It was like how to install tuning keys, and I show you a trick on how to widen the holes using a reamer and some painter's tape, and I highly recommend something like that. Although in that video, I show you basically how to measure them and get the right tuning keys so you don't have to drill holes. I'm a real huge proponent of not modding guitars by drilling holes, by cutting. Ralph has helped me and done repairs for years with me, right?
It's a very slow process because again, you're using a reamer or using something kind of just to slightly open up the hole little by little just to make sure you can get that machine head in there.
Yeah. So in the video I show you, what I do is I take a reamer and I painter's tape both sides and I ream the hole on the outside, on the back side and the front side. And then, so it's like it looks like an hourglass, right? The center is, and then I use the drill press to drill through the meat of the middle of it, so I don't have to worry about chipping the outside.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the video, I have total control when I'm doing that. I found there's other techniques. Somebody might even comment on their techniques they've used in the past. What I've learned is that is a technique. I've done thousands of tuning keyholes, and I've never had to pay for anybody's guitar from ruining their guitar. So that's why I suggest it. When other people suggest other things, I can't say that those are wrong. They're probably just as right, if not better. But this is a technique that I've used. That's the one I like. And so I said, watch that video and I'll link it.
And it's a very, again, go slow. Take your time doing it. There's no rush involved. So
absolutely, it's measure twice, cut once. It is.
Then before you start cutting, you measure again.
Yes, and the second piece of advice I have is really good. Is this: if you're never done it before, take a piece of wood about the same thickness as your headstock, drill a hole through it the same thickness as the hole that you're going to do. Maybe you make a couple of those, and then work on that piece of wood. Work out your ideas, right? Drill that out, or do the reamer technique I said, right? Use something else besides your guitar, because once you chip that headstock, what's worse is you have to stare at that. Right? It's really not fun to stare at your mistake every time you play guitar.
Then when someone sees it and they're like, hey, what happened to your headstock?
Yeah, and then you have to tell them how you chipped it, and it's just not the best situation to have. So there you go. Okay, so, next question is from Joe. Joe St. Ibanez says, Diamond guitars, quality is pretty good compared to to most. What do you think? Well, obviously you can see I have two, one behind Ralph's head and one behind my head. I bought two, and I've been playing with them. I really like the Bolero so far. This is the one behind my head. The one behind Ralph's head, I kind of like okay. I'm not in love 100%. I'm liking it, but it has to be set up. So I've set up the Bolero. I have not set up this one to my liking. I'm going to do that soon. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I've decided to put it in a video. There's a setup video that will be out by Monday that involves that guitar. It's definitely a different type of video. So you'll see. I can promise you haven't seen this video yet on YouTube. Anyways, and I needed to use that guitar for it because I needed a guitar that legitimately needed to set up. Yeah. And so I'm using that. The guitars are very good. And if you haven't heard the story, I did a summit video with the Tone King, Pixie Licks, Jeff Diamant, which is Jeff Diamond from Diamond Guitars. And he offered to send me one to review. And I told him I would rather have a deal. So he was very gracious and he hooked me up. And I bought two at a smoking deal. So, so to give it a try. And I'm glad I bought the two because I ended up loving the one and I like the other one. And so I really like the Bolero a lot.
Yeah, I was looking this one over when I got in, just checking it out, and it's got good quality. The fit and finish is really good, so I'm pretty impressed by it.
Yeah, it's a great guitar. I'm gonna do it just because Big Idea 100 says, "Is Taylor Swift a guitar goddess?" She is. If you saw my shirt at the NAMM show. Thank you, everyone who gets the joke of that shirt. Like I said, I really had fun doing it. My daughter loved it. That's what happened. I made the joke. I said I should make a shirt that says that. And my wife and especially my daughter just thought it was the funniest thing ever. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So, so anyways, the next question. Ready? Here we go. I went. Okay, so what is a cheap pedal? What cheap pedals would complement the Mark V in the effects loop? And that's from Heather Jean. Heather, I have a Mark V Mini. I don't know if you're talking about the Mini or the bigger one, but the pedals I use in mine are the acid reflux delay, and I use the Boss. Sometimes I use the Boss 63 reverb pedal. And I have the immerse reverb; it's really nice. But for me, the pedals I use in my effects loop are that acid reflux delay. That's the pedal I like in there, just to have a little delay. My experience with the Mesa Boogies that I love the Mesa Boogies, is that they don't sometimes like Boss pedals. They start making a noise. It's like the Boss pedals are too intense to them. But I still try to use them. I still use a Boss looper. So that's my experience. But in my Mark, here's what I use. I use my Boss looper, my RC1. I use the 63 reverb sometimes because I like it a little better than the reverb in that amp sometimes. And I like that acid reflux delay. So those are what I use. I don't really use any chorus or flanging effects, and it doesn't need an EQ pedal. And I like that amp because it really doesn't need much. In fact, if I just put a little delay in it, it's perfect. So, but I like having the looper in the effects loop because then you can use all the sound off the amp and just have that in the mix. Okay, so here's a question. I'm trying to answer because it's a strange one. It says, JG Mopar says, why is the Maxon of so expensive? I don't know what, he probably means OD, so expensive? I don't know, because I don't know which Maxon you're talking about. If you're talking about the Maxon Tube Screamer, they're not, no Maxon pedals are expensive because you can buy them used, right? I mean, new, yeah, but great thing about pedals is, you find them used. I can find pretty much any Maxon pedal for $100-ish.
They're expensive used. Because people pay that price.
Yeah, I mean they're made in Japan. They're good, right? By logic, you can argue almost why any pedal is expensive, right? They're not expensive to make for the most part. That's for sure. Oh, he said Maxon OD. Okay. So you know, they make them in Japan. They can command the price for them, but you know, always buy that stuff used. It's Okay, so ready? Let's see.
Paul's Awesome Acoustica.
Okay, what does he say? What
pedals would you recommend for an electroacoustic rig?
Okay.
Whatever Monty Montgomery plays.
Yeah, I did a video, and I'll stick by that. I like the, if I have it out, it's not. It's in retirement right now. Let's see. I use a looper pedal for acoustic electrics, and I use the Echoplex preamp by Dunlop, Jim Dunlop. I really like that for acoustics. Some people use and I like the Boss Blues Driver,
which is,
and if you think that sounds strange,
try
it because it does
it works.
It works, and it can make your acoustic sound definitely cool and a little different, a little bluesy, little distortion, but you got to be light with the gain, just enough to get the break over, and you get that acoustic to sing, especially for some lead tones if you're using that loop pedal. So there you go. There is, somebody had a question, it jumped again. There's 507 of us. Ryan at RNA Music says, howdy Ryan. Enjoying Texas. I'm sure it's hot like it is here. There is thoughts on, so there's two, I'm going to mix two questions into one. One was thoughts on Victory amps, that comes from Stefan, and the other one was thoughts on Fargen amps for Shaj's 711, and I'll do 2 for 1. Fargen amps, I've had a good experience with them. They have a Marshall kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Not the Fargen, just the Victory.
Yeah, it's a very Marshall-y kind of thing. The truth is this: Marshall is not interested in a lot of markets, right? So a lot of companies like Fargen and Friedman and just you name them, they've taken those markets, right? And one of those markets is the smaller amp market and the mid-size market. So they do great Marshall stuff, right? Sad thing is there's a lot of really awesome amp resources to get a great Marshall sound that aren't Marshall anymore, because Marshall makes pretty much the standards. You know, what's funny is I did a video the other day with Dave Friedman, right, on the Tone Talk channel with Mark Kazansky and Dave Friedman. But unfortunately, off the air, we had this small discussion. And we were talking about Marshall, and one of the things we talked about was, that they don't identify that they need to make some more mid 50 watt and less products. And he mentioned that the BE, the Brown Eye his 100 watt head is the number one seller in his lineup, right? And I said, yeah, because you can actually get that to sound moderately good low. And he said, yeah, you can. And I said, a JCM 800 doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
So you need a JCM 100 at 25 or 35 watts if you want it to sound right. So that's what those amp companies give you. And Victory's doing the same thing. They're going after that Marshall thing, right, with the Sheriff and stuff. And same thing. They're looking for that Marshall market that Marshall isn't doing. They're not.
Yeah,
they're
seeing that market void, and they're just sliding in there and giving the consumers an option.
Yeah, absolutely. The truth is a JCM 100 would be fantastic at 25, 35 watts, right? It's just we're used to the old days, and a little interesting thing, I'm not here to start an argument with anyone, but I've experienced what I'm about to say, which is a lot of amp designers that I've talked to, Jeff Diamond and Dave Friedman and Tony Crank Amps and you name it, Mark Malin from Malin Amps, all seem to say the same thing, even though those amp companies are kind of different from each other, which is the power section in an amp, right? The preamp section is the most important, and the speakers are very important, and then the power section is not the most important thing to the sound, right? It's important, but it's not the most important thing. And so it leads you to believe, if that's true, what they're saying, that it's not a huge percentage of the overall sound, well, then we can make amps with smaller power sections. And so it's interesting when amp companies don't recognize that I can't take a 100 watt head. It has nothing to do with being in a bedroom. You can't take a 100 watt head anywhere anymore. It's just too loud, right? I mean, the days of playing big venues outside are for the big rock stars now.
Yeah.
Most musicians are playing, even, let's be honest, they're playing churches, they're playing clubs, right? They're not playing big venues anymore. And even Paul Gilbert said the main reason we all played giant amps back in the day when we were in small bands was we thought we were going to be in arenas one day. And then when you go to big arenas now, they have in-ear monitors and they don't play big amps.
Unless you're AC/DC.
And then you got a row of those suckers.
Yeah, I just remember playing out, and even in the larger clubs, the 100 watt amps, you couldn't really crack them open very much. It was just too much because you got PAs now.
So here's a question from Brian for you, Ralph. So you get to read it.
Ralph, would you choose a versatile amp for your tones, or get a good clean amp, Fender, and use pedals? Seems either way you can end up spending the same amount of money. I would get a good clean amp and use pedals, just because I'm a simpleton in a lot of things that I do. So if I just have a good clean amp, it could be a Fender or whatever you want it to be. Then I can actually build the sound how I want to. I feel like I'm always, if I do use a Black Star ID15 for practice, and I'm kind of stuck in a lot of those sounds. So it's not like I can really, with that practice amp, go out what's besides in the amp. I'd rather have like a Blues Junior and just buy whatever pedals I want and build up my sound that way. Probably more money that way in the long run, but at least I'm going to be happier. That's how I look at it.
Right. I think that's reasonable. Right. I agree.
Yeah, how many pedals do you have now?
300 and something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's...
Yeah, and then I'm not saying I'd go that crazy, but
here was that Echoplex. I just looked down at shelves, and there's shelves. My room is lined with shelves with pedals. So here.
And there's like guitars everywhere in here, but I would rather do that and just build it like Legos. No, it's Legos for musicians. You can kind of connect that sound how you want it to and move stuff around that way, which for me I'd be a lot happier with.
Yeah. Right. Okay, here's a question. Banda No Way Back says, have you tried any of the Chinese Charvels? So, Banda, are you talking about the Desolation ones? Those are the only ones I know that Charvel did, besides, throughout the years. The Desolation ones,
awesome.
They're great guitars. They're dirt cheap online. Look at those. The word is Desolation, Charvel. It's when Charvel decided they were going to try to rebrand themselves. When Larry Thomas, who was a president of Guitar Center, was hired by Fender to revitalize Fender, one of the things he did was had them come out with new products, and he wanted to rebrand Charvel as a product competing for Schecter and LTD, the new metal market. So they made all those Desolation Charvels, which obviously upset all the diehard Charvel players because they're not the standard guitars. But with Fender's money power behind them, they were able to make a lot of these guitars dirt cheap. Neck through, set neck bodies with, really cool tops. But more importantly, almost all of them come stock with EMGs. And some people didn't like that. Some people did like that. My thought on it was simple. EMGs are great because they're like A1 steak sauce. Whether on steak or on cardboard, they taste the same.
Yes.
Right? I honestly believe if you don't like EMGs, there's just no hope for that situation. However, if you have a guitar and it sounds horrible, if you shove EMGs in it, I don't care what guitar it is, it's going to sound like EMGs now.
Yes.
Right? One of the sad things is, that's why people reacted when Zach Wild put EMGs in the Les Paul. It's like they knew he de-Les Paul'd the sound of his Les Paul. They made it...
Yeah. Every guitar now sounds the exact same.
Yeah, that's...
So when people are like, oh, Les Paul's got soul, you stuck EMGs in there, you just ripped out that soul.
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about putting a preamp pickup in a guitar is that it becomes that sound. So those guitars for a very low price look good, feel good, but of course have those EMGs. So to answer your question, I dug them.
I liked even on the neck throughs, they went and they removed the finish off the necks. So you didn't have that stickiness on the neck, and so it was wood grain on the neck. I thought it was genius.
Right?
So yeah, I definitely did. I really did like the Charvel Desolation guitars.
I did too. I don't know why I didn't keep one. Doyle Kimmons says, hey, Phil and Ralph, Les Paul versus PRS, which we kind of talked about that, but he's got a little caveat to that. It says, I bought a 1992 First Owner Premium Plus Classic from a buddy. And I earmark that because I want to talk about that in a second. He was thinking of selling online. I played 2 chords, paid top dollar, $2,700 on the spot, best dollars spent. One of the things, so your point is, right, that you liked your Les Paul. I like my Les Paul too. In fact, my problem is I have a Les Paul that I think sound-wise blows all my PRSs away. It's just 10.5 pounds, right? You've played it. It's a bear of a guitar. It's a workout. So I agree. There's something magical when a Les Paul is right. You pick them up sometimes. I was literally in a music store yesterday with Joe. Mm-hmm. We went lunch and I went to a music store. In fact, I was like, Anyways, we played 2 Les Pauls. I loved the way one sounded. It was so great. I almost bought it. I was like, I don't need another guitar. I'm insane. Mm-hmm. And then I played the other one that I liked the way it felt, and it sounded horrible. So it's just the luck of the draw. The light one had no resonance, no tone, and they both had the same pickups in them. But something that you also said, Doyle, that's interesting is he says it's a 1992 First Owner Premium Plus Classic. One thing about Gibson that kind of is hard for me is all these models. The Premium Plus tops, the Classics, the Traditional Pro, which is a Guitar Center only, by the way. Trad Pro is a Guitar Center only model. Then the Traditionals are available to all the other dealers. And then there's the Standard, and then there's this HT, and then there's the...
all these weird variations of stuff everywhere.
It gets so overwhelming for me. And then also they use different necks. They have the Slim Taper 60s, the 60s neck, the C-shape. I have a 2005 Standard Les Paul, and it has a C-shaped neck, right, that they did. So, and so 27... Gibson's a tough thing because you can overpay for a Gibson. And same with the Fender. You can overpay for them, and eventually it makes sense. They hold value. It doesn't seem like they're going to stop.
No.
Right? Interesting tie-in, 2 things. One is, we always wonder when the next generation's not going to care about these products, like Gibson and Fender. But what's funny was I was watching a ton of videos about the death of the guitar, right? That article came out, and I got interviewed in there, and I was the one at the end who said, I don't know, maybe it's going to change and go to this. What I found interesting was there was all these takes on it, and some of them were interesting and some of them were... But more importantly, I went specifically looking for anyone who was young. I wanted to see what a kid thought of that article. And this one kid out of nowhere with, I'm not even making this up, 8 subscribers. And one of them's me now. And only because I just, I liked what the kid was saying. He was a kid. He was literally a kid. And his comment that I thought was ingenious, with only a young mind could be so open-minded to think like this. He said, when he was talking about the article saying there's no more guitar heroes, his point was, what are you talking about? I love Clapton. I love Hendrix. I love this. And he's going on. He goes, there's still guitar heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though they're not new, They're still heroes. We don't need new heroes if the old heroes still exist. And what's interesting about that was I thought of this funny thought. Well, think of how many new comic book characters there are.
Yeah.
Right? The classics are still relevant. Kids today love Superman. They love Spider-Man. They love Iron Man. They love them as much as we did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And Superman's not old, right? Right?
Yeah.
So these rock stars, and even though the rock stars age, unlike the comic book characters, they may age physically. Their music
that was recorded.
Right. Well, Jimi Hendrix is in a time capsule forever because he passed away when he was young. So it's... I thought it was just amazing. So same thing I've decided, if that's true, and that kid's right, that basically these could be forever capsulized as guitar heroes, which is the only interesting argument I heard against anything else I heard, was that just like your Les Paul that you overpaid for, or you said you paid too much for, and Fenders, well, they're going to stay around forever too, because they're going to be...
And even going on back, I remember when Guitar Hero came out, we got a huge surge of kids coming in wanting to learn to play guitar because they played Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and all of a sudden they come in, they're like, hey, I actually want to learn. Because I remember it was weird at first because they were all citing these old bands from the 80s. And we couldn't figure that out at first. Then we realized, we're like, why do you guys want to learn this? Like, why you listen to this? And all of a sudden we realized, oh, it was Guitar Hero. It was everything from Guitar Hero. And that made sense. And all of a sudden, for several years, we get a big surge of kids coming in.
Yep.
Wanting to play Iron Maiden.
That was huge. When Guitar Hero was big, it was huge watching kids come in. We actually make jokes. A kid would come in and the mom would be like, he wants to sign up for lessons. I'm like, Guitar Hero? And he's like, yeah, I love Guitar Hero. I'm like, and what's funny, I don't know if I've ever said this on an official broadcast before, but I've actually said this to so many people. The thing that made me laugh the most about Guitar Hero was our industry did not know it was coming because, you can Google it. Gibson sued them. Gibson fought them. Fender didn't want to be involved with it. Isn't it funny? This thing that was really became this huge thing in a moment of time. Now,
yes.
It was, right? It's really why I've said in the past that when people talk about guitar sales not being so great now, I've said, well, that was the plume.
Yeah.
Right? You had a boom in the market and you had Guitar Hero. You had everything happening at the right moment. So that was kind of artificial at that time. But more important, it's funny how our industry didn't embrace the youth until it was too late. You know what they did? This is what our industry did. After it was pretty much over, then they got on board, right, with guitar. Well, because there was guitar. One of them was Rock Band, right?
Yeah, Guitar Hero and Rock Band.
So Rock Band was second. So they got on board for Rock Band. That's why Rock Band had the likeness of Slash and
yeah.
They got on board. They were on board for Rock Band once they saw Guitar Hero was making it. But where our industry messed up was then when Rocksmith came out, we all jumped on that. Like Fender, everybody was like, we're behind this. And by the time Rocksmith came out, it was at the tail end of that success.
Yeah.
So it was over, and there'll be something new. That's how it works. But it's interesting because I used to think like everybody else, maybe Fender and Gibson will fade out the memory of the younger generation. But that kid was really inspiring in his little speech about how that stuff is.
Well,
is
and
never
again,
going anywhere.
I also think it's because of it's an older mentality running those companies now, where eventually they'll have to evolve to the generations coming in now. You can't run the company it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Right. So Michael May says, I'm 25 and just got to the point to where I can afford these kind of instruments. Of course, I can only speak for myself, but I'm only just able to jump into the market. Yeah. Yeah, I understand what he's saying. Right. He's new to the market. Yeah, that's so that's if you want to know anything about guitar sales, let me tell you how it works. People basically either get out of high school and go to college or go get a job. Either way, it takes about 6 to 8 years to establish yourself financially, whether you go the family route or not. So statistically speaking, the guitar industry is no different than most industries. The meat of the market for us is in the 30-year-old to 50-year-old range, right? After 50, it still goes on for a while, but people get retirement-minded towards their late 50s, and they don't buy as many guitars. Now, if you're out there and you're different than that, I understand that, but we're talking about as a whole. And so there is, before high school ends, though, those are buyers as well, because they're on their parents' dime. So that market exists, and then there's like in the 20s, it goes into trading and layaways, and we're all there. So you're right. 25, you're starting to get into the market now, and it'll be interesting to see if you go with the high end guitar market or if you take advantage of these lower priced good guitars that are out there. So A-Bomb says Ralph is wearing the same thing he was wearing last time. So
a different shirt. I was wearing a Fender shirt last time. This is a Gretsch shirt.
See,
I still wear the same hat though.
A-Bomb, it's very important that you pay attention to Ralph's.
Like I said, dude, I'm a simpleton. I really don't care.
For the record, I'm wearing the same shirt that I was wearing live with just a couple days ago with Dave Freeman, which is my Carter's Vintage Guitars, and it's because that day I told the guys at Carter Vintage Guitars, Adam at Carter, totally took great care of me when I was there in Nashville, and he gave me the shirt. And I told him I'd wear it for the live thing with Dave Freeman. And so I wore it specifically just for that 1 hour. And then I go, And so today I decided to wear it. And ironically, we decided last minute to do a live thing today. So, okay. So, Paul is saying, just got a PRS 594. It's a beautiful guitar. I think it's what's going to give Paul his place in time. This is Chorizo, I think Chris Sorrero. Like I said, guys, if I mess up your name, I'm sorry. Phil, have you played the new Zach Myers PRS with the satin finish neck? I have. It's a great guitar. The neck is really thick. I've said this before. A couple of people emailed me personally, what do I think of the guitar? If you haven't tried the guitar, it's an easy thing to figure out. Pick up PRS 245, SE 245, SE, or any of the ones with the thick, wide, fat necks. Grab anything PRS with a wide, fat neck. Hold that, imagine it's slightly thicker, and it has a satin finish, and that's the Zach Myers. Really cool, but you're gonna wanna like that, because in fact, the neck is very reminiscent of what's on the 594. So if you're looking at a 594 and you can have access to Zach Myers, imagine that neck with a gloss finish. Have you played the Zach Myers? That's the semi-hollow one. We had a bunch in the store.
Yeah, I remember having them in the store, yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
They were cool. I didn't have a problem with them. Simple answer.
Grant Brown says, thoughts on Taylor solid body electrics? I played a couple when they were first coming out. They're cool, right?
But didn't wow me.
It didn't wow me either.
Yeah. It was like, it's a Taylor solid body electric. I played it and I was like, a lot of companies did it better.
Yeah, I actually have a story. I think I always have a story. Anyways, I have a story about that. So here's how it goes. I wanted to be a Taylor dealer when those guitars came out. So I went to Taylor and I wanted to add the line. And so when I was talking to them, they said, to be a dealer, you had to buy 8 of those. And I said, no offense. I'm a PRS dealer, and I just had my meeting with Paul, and he's not making me buy any of his acoustics. And it's because I don't want PRS acoustics. I'm talking about the American ones. I don't want high-end Paul Reed Smith acoustics, and I don't want high-end Taylor electrics. I want high-end Taylor acoustics and higher PRS electrics. And I go, because those are proven products. So although I think both companies did a good job dabbing in each other's playground, Ralph said it best. It's not that it's not a great guitar. It's a fantastic guitar. But there's a lot of players in that market that command those kind of prices. So, and that's everything I can say, considering I have the utmost respect for Bob Taylor. So, I did own a Taylor T5, which is a hybrid, and I did like it, but I ended up getting rid of it for the Godin A6. Just felt more comfortable. The Godin A6 I thought was just a good guitar for the price. Let's see.
Gecko. Hey, Phil, what 7-string guitar for about $900 would you recommend?
For $900, 7-string guitars, I really like the Schecter guitars. Now, I play... now, Diamond has some, but I haven't physically touched them. But I've played a lot of Schecter 7-strings. Nothing bad about them at all. I like the slim ones. They have the new slim neck ones. They sound good. You can find them relatively inexpensive. I'm an Ibanez 7-string player. However, I've picked up a lot of the new Ibanez 7-strings, and unless they're expensive, I haven't felt they're that great. But
the Jacksons.
Yeah, the Jackson 7-strings are pretty good. Especially there's some really nice Japanese ones out there used that you can get really good deals on. But yeah, those are all good guitars. The only thing I will tell you is this: if you're getting a 7-string guitar, I've said this many times, if you're getting a 7-string guitar to try it, just keep in mind that 7-string guitars are like treadmills, right, where they're just littered, used everywhere.
Yeah.
So everybody tries one, and then most people realize it's not for them, and then it goes on its way. And for a little while, when it was kind of cool cachet to have them, every manufacturer made one, right? When Limp Bizkit and Korn and all those guys were the rage.
And those things, 7-string guitars were everywhere.
You know, I actually remember a couple years back, like 5 years ago, I was collecting 7-string guitars.
Yes.
I started collecting them. I thought it'd be cool. Here's what happened. There's so many, I got exhausted. Remember, I had like a BC Rich.
Yep.
And I just went crazy thinking this is going to be the coolest collection to have, is all these 7-string guitars. And no, what I realized was, I never realized until I was collecting them that everybody made one. There's Squier 7-string guitars that are pretty good. Samick. Everybody, Dane Electro 7-string guitars. Everybody had one at some point. So there's a lot of choices. So the reason why I'm saying that is, if don't just buy a $900 one. There are great ones to be found. Some of the Japanese-made Ibanez ones, which is the ones I really like. I have a couple of there over there.
Yeah.
$500, right? In fact, I saw a hardtail one for $500-$600. That's hardtail, great pickups, great neck, but still highly recommend those Schecters. I really like them. So, next question. Okay, Matthew says, hey, thoughts on the 6505 plus 112 combo with an Eminence Swamp Thing? So obviously you added that. Just bought one for $400. If you guys watched the video I did the other night with Dave Freeman and Mark Hazansky, Dave Freeman and I have this really great, and Mark have this great conversation about Peavey. It's great. I need to find the moment so I can earmark that moment. But in there, he talks about the fact that he thought all the Peavey 5150 amps, those style amps, were built as cheaply as possible, but for some reason they last forever and they sound great. And I agree 100%. Right? They just sound good. So yeah, that's a good score. $400. Think about that for a 50 watt, great sounding amp, right? And it came with the Eminence Swamp Thing. I've had a Swamp Thing speaker before. It's a good speaker. Very cool.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, good deal. Good amp, right? Let's see. There is. Mike Epson says, have you played a Lone Star, Mesa Boogie Lone Star Special? Thoughts? I owned a Lone Star combo. I don't remember if it was a special. I don't remember. I just remember I got it because I really wanted that sound, and I ended up going to the Supersonic. That's how come I have a Supersonic now. I went Lone Star first. Everybody kind of talked up to Lone Star, and I went to it, and I really liked it. In fact, of all the Mesa amps, I think that's my favorite, even though I play the Mark Mini now for that sound. The Lone Star is great. So Andy Timmons, kind of sold me on the whole Lone Star stuff because he's such a monster player with monster tone. And no, very cool amp. But I ended up going Supersonic, if that helps. And I think they're very like in the way that they sound. Maybe the Lone Star just has a bigger, beefier, clean channel. So I don't know if you've ever tried the Lone Stars.
No, I have not played the Lone Star.
Ralph gets to try a lot of stuff, but he's not as gear crazy as me. But he unfortunately or fortunately tries almost everything I try.
Yeah. Well, your mentality is, hey, there's a guitar store, stop.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, we're lost. Where are we? I don't know, dude. There's a guitar store. Let's stop.
Yes, I hit almost every store in Nashville. It was great. And I think I bought something from every other one I was in. The TigerBait.com says, Philip, review the Johnny Mark Jaguar. I love the demos I've seen on YouTube. I had a Johnny Mark Jaguar for a short time. If I was going to own a Jaguar, a nice one, that would be the one I would do. I currently have a Squier Jaguar. I wanted a Jaguar, and so I bought the Johnny Mark because I love the color. Mine was that orange. It's a metallic orange and was gorgeous. What I learned about myself was I'm not really big on the 24 3/4 scale length on that guitar. I like the Jazzmaster 25.5. I really want the Jazzmaster scale length on a Jaguar. I prefer the Jaguar's electronics and pickup sound, but for the Jazzmaster length, I have one of each for that reason. And like I said, honest to goodness, if you're looking at the Johnny Marr, it doesn't get any better than that guitar for the price point. So I don't even need to do a review. If you're thinking about it, that's the one to get.
They're cool.
Yeah, I like I said, if I was going to own one, that's the one. I got rid of it only because it was a lot of money, and I had tied up in the money into it, and I wasn't playing it. And so I decided that sell it, put that money back in my pocket, buy the Squier for the rare time I use that and play that when I play some venture stuff or whatever I'm up to. But you know, let's see. So Adam Londoner says, Phil, did the batteries on the Fly 3, the Blackstar Fly 3, ever die? I've had mine a year and still haven't changed them. Yeah, I've only changed them once. The original batteries that came with it, I played it nonstop and I killed it in about 3 or 4 months, and then the new batteries have been going for.
Yeah, because when you bought it, we were playing in the store every day.
We were playing it every day.
Because everybody thought it was funny. You're like,
I made it my
what?
permanent amp for setups. Yeah. Remember? I still love that amp. You know, the Fly 3, the funny thing about Blackstar Fly 3, this is sad, a bunch of companies have sent me these battery-powered amps.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of them, I'm like, nope, I had to send them back. Because I'm like, just there's no reason to talk about you guys until you guys can beat these guys. Blackstar 3 is the only battery-powered amp I like. Hands down. It's just a great amp. You know, say what you want, but those guys, that's where they nailed it. Let's see. Have you ever tried the Soldano 25 watt 20th anniversary amp with attenuator to get the Van Halen-esque sound? I haven't. I played the 25 watt Hot Rod. I don't know if that's the same amp. I think that was an anniversary amp, so maybe I have. Fantastic amp. $2,500, one channel, no frills. I wanted it really bad. In fact, if you go through my reviews, I said this, which may upset people, but my LBX head, this one right here, my LBX head, I decided that's what I was going to buy for a fraction of the price of the Hot Rod. I still like the Hot Rod a little better, the 25 watt Soldano, but it's $2,500 versus $600.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
that's tough.
It is tough, right? If I ever go to a smaller collection where it's just one or two things, maybe I'll make those decisions. But
sorry, I'm laughing because you're like, if I go to a smaller collection.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, we collect stuff because we enjoy it. But great amp. But I bought an LBX because for a fraction of the price, I could get that close to that sound. And although not as good, it's close. All right, so I'm going to do 2 more questions, and we'll call it because we're at the 5-minute window. We're at an hour already. And let's see what we got. There is. Okay, so somebody's got a technical question. I don't know if I can answer it here. It's Fred Jones. I'm going to give it a shot. It says, hey, Fred Jones, I'd like to change the pickguard on my FSR Tele. So FSR, if you guys don't know, means Fender Special Run. Mm-hmm. Means it's some kind of limited color or product, right? If you guys don't know, that's what FSR means. Side note, FSR guitars by Fender are special runs generally in the summertime months. You usually see Fender put out something exotic and different because it's slow sales and it gets beefed up. Sometimes it's FSR could be something special for a store like Guitar Center, but most of the time it's just something unique. So he's got a special Tele. Anyways, I have a neck pickup screwed, and I was wondering how to put the pickup height back to normal after swapping. Okay, so here's the deal. What he's saying. He's got a Telecaster. We've all experienced this. And what happens is, even though it's sitting through the pickguard, it's screwed into the body, right? So he's picking off the pickguard, he's putting it back, and he has to adjust the height. But of course, it's underneath the pickguard. So you got to set the height before you put the pickguard on, right? I adjust the height of the pickup with my ear. I highly recommend that. So just take the pickguard off, make the adjustment.
Yep.
If you're not comfortable with that, what I usually tell people is about the thickness of a nickel and a dime, or a nickel and a quarter. So put 2 coins, a nickel and a quarter, put that underneath the string, give you that kind of distance. But I hate saying that because all pickups are different. Really what I tell everybody is just take your guitar, strum and play, and adjust it, right? And what you're looking for, especially on the clean channel on an amp, some people use distortion, that's fine. I use clean. What I'm looking for is this sweet spot where it doesn't cause the clean channel to break and get a little shrill. And I'm also not looking for that warm, hollow acoustic sound where the pickup is too far away. So I adjust that, and then I put the pickguard back on. You can always just drill the 2 holes and mount it to the pickguard as well. However, some people don't want to do that because aesthetically it looks right the other way. But that's how you do it. Just go ahead and do that. So that's how you adjust it. Like I said, use your ears. Your ears are your quality assurance department for everything you do, from your playing to your sound.
Yeah, and
right?
sometimes if it's too low, the volume drop off, and they're like, "Oh, it's not that loud." Like,
yeah.
"Oh, we get a no."
Yeah, because the problem is every company is going to have standardized suggestions for heights, but it gets a little tricky because I like to balance it with the other pickup. Your amp is different than other people's amps. Some amps break easier than others, right? So you might have a sound preference. I like clean at the edge of breakup. Some people like clean, smooth, clear. So you might like your action high and your pickups low. Some people are the opposite. But either way, use your ears. Better than any measuring tool. Okay. And if you don't feel that works, use your friend's ears. Right? Make adjustments while somebody else listens. Right? Okay, last question. Ready? It's from Bud. It says, Ralph. Ralph, if you could take any of Phil's guitars, what are you
What am I taking? And Phil, reply the favor.
And take one of Ralph's.
Yeah.
I get to take one of yours. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can have any one of my guitars. I can have one of yours. What do you pick?
That's a tough one. Just because, like, our
tastes are so different?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. But I already know what guitar I'm taking of yours.
I know which one you're taking, too, because you're a jerk.
I know.
That's a good question.
Yes.
I would probably... I'm probably going to take one of your PRSs.
Okay, which one?
Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to take your 7-string Ibanez.
Which one?
The blue one.
The blue one. It's funny, I'm selling that one.
All right.
So, yeah, I'm keeping the black one and getting rid of the blue one. Okay, so he would take my Prestige 7-string Ibanez in blue. I would take his Paul Reed Smith SE250.
Yeah, because you're a money-grubbing jerk.
No, because you know why? I'll tell you exactly why. His Paul Reed Smith SE250, which they don't make anymore,
yes.
Right? So it's different than the 245 and the 594 because it's 25-inch scale length, like a normal, right? But it has the most beautiful natural top on it. And the funny thing about that story is this. Paul Reed Smith used to have this deal where when you hit your number, they gave you a free guitar, right, at the end of the year. So what they did is they gave you a check, and the check would value about a guitar. That's right. But here's why I say a free guitar. He'd give you a rebate as a dealer, and the check would be all kinds of sizes. But mostly it was enough to buy, for a dealer our size, one really nice Paul Reed Smith guitar. But the check was only redeemable for stuff.
Yes.
So we would buy a guitar. So the first year he did this, it was great, and so we got a guitar, and Ralph got it, right? That's how you got the guitar, right? So he gets the guitar. The next year, I'm like, I told Shauna and stuff, I go, I'm going to need a guitar this year. Ralph got one last year. I'm getting one this year. And we go to meet with them, and they're like, oh, we stopped that program. This is true, 100%. I'm like, I was going to get a free guitar. And instead they had, what did they give us, like a shirt or something? I don't know what it was, but either way, it was like they just took that program away.
Well, because I remember, because I bought it at Christmas. It was on the wall. Everybody saw it.
Right.
Everybody loved it, but nobody was buying it.
Right.
Because it was between that PRS and a Jackson King V.
And then Shauna said you can have any guitar in the store, take one, and then that's the one you took.
Yeah, because I'm a big Megadeth fan, so I wanted a Jackson King V, but I ended up with the PRS. So.
Yep. So
that's how I got my PRS.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful guitar. So that's what. So ironically, he would take my Ibanez and I would take his PRS, and there you go. All right, guys, that's the end of it today. There was 585 of us. I appreciate everybody hanging out. Like I said before, if I miss a show, I said we would just do it. I try to make it work. That's what today was. I appreciate you guys just impromptu joining us. I'll be back next week. Everything should be the same. I don't have anything crazy going on except for I'm hoping to work out my arrangements to go to G&L's factory. That's coming up. And again, thank you so much for the great questions and hanging out. As you guys know, this channel is more of a community thing and a forum. So please put your comments, thoughts, everything in there. I can't answer them all, but I do read most of them, if not all of them, to at least know what everybody's thinking and you feel the fire of doing this.
That way we know what gear to go out searching for and anything that we missed.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yep.
And as always, thank you for your time and know your gear.
Yep.